we now start a discussion on an issue making headlines. After threatening to take military action against South Korea, North Korea blew up the Inter-Korean Contact Office on Tuesday. This after weeks of strong rhetoric against the South and upon the 20th anniversary of the two Koreas' joint declaration for peace and cooperation. So what is behind this recent surge of aggression and just how far will North Korea go? To delve into this issue, I'm joined by Chun In-bum, former Lieutenant General and Commander of the Special Warfare Command of the Republic of Korea Army, and Mark P. Barry, an analyst based in New York who's been following North Korea for more than 3 decades. Now, my first question to you, General Chun. North Korea has blown up the Joint Liaison Office that happened on Tuesday. It's now a pile of rubble. Did this surprise you? And what really is the true motive behind this aggression towards the South?
Yes, it's really unfortunate that North Korea has gone through with this demolition of the liaison office. I think North Korea seems to have made the conclusion that considering the COVID-19 situation, the U.S. presidential elections, and South Korean internal politics, that it has the possibility of forcing the hand of the South Korean government to persuade the United States and with or without U.S. approval, restart North-South economic exchange. So I think that's the main motive for the actions that have followed for the past couple of days.
So again, it's trying to stir some kind of reaction, some kind of action from the South. And Dr. Barry, what kind of message do you think that the North is intending to convey, not only to South Korea, but to the rest of the world as well?
I think, in addition to what General Chun has so elegantly expressed, I think that North Korea looks at the regional environment and sees massive changes that they were hoping to avoid by having successful diplomacy with the United States to be able to get some kind of a interim nuclear deal out of Hanoi, which didn't materialize, and to deal with the fact that China under Xi Jinping is extremely strong and putting on a lot of pressure throughout their neighborhood. And at the same time, unexpectedly, they find that President Trump is talking in terms of pulling troops out of countries where the United States bases troops, which for some of those countries it regards as rather delinquent in paying the amount of money that he thinks should be paid. And unfortunately, by inference, South Korea gets connected into that, despite the fact that at his press conference yesterday, President Trump only mentioned about reducing the troop numbers in Germany. So this is a whole new ballgame that North Korea was hoping to avoid. And their particular behavior pattern is maybe something we expect, but it's also something that they don't know how to escape. They, in many ways, are prisoners of their own system and their own ways of behavior and their own self-image.
Well, General Chun, considering their antics and rhetoric over the past few weeks, I mean, branding South Korea as the enemy and even threatening to re-enter zones that were previously demilitarized, including Kumgangsan and Kaesong, how far do you think that the North Koreans will actually go?
Yes. So although North Korea exaggerates, they usually follow through with what they say. We should not be surprised by increased military activity. And they've already made it clear that they're not going to adhere to the Comprehensive Military Agreement or the 19 September Military Agreement that has been in effect for about 20 months now. And so we should not be surprised by the reinforcement of the guard posts or opening up of artillery ports in the east, the Western Islands, or military activity throughout the DMZ and MNL. That should not come as a surprise. I'm hoping that they will not be foolish enough to conduct a cyber attack on South Korean infrastructure, or even go so far as to conduct a direct act of terrorism to our citizens. So I'm hoping that they don't do this, because the real danger lies in the unintended or unforeseen second and third order effects that these could lead to, and these could lead to escalation. I'm hoping that North Korea understands that South Korean military is quite ready and willing to respond very strongly to these kind of acts. So they need to be forewarned that these are things that they should not do. They must not take the South Korean military for granted.
But you're not ruling out any further military provocations there, General Chun. Well, Dr. Barry, would you agree with that, or do you think there's a certain extent of bluffing going on?
I absolutely agree, but we have to be very careful. The relationship between President Moon, who ideally would like to feel perhaps more verbal backing from President Trump, that relationship is very crucial. The president really does not want to be drawn into making public comments, but then again, he may have to, particularly if a member of the press corps asks him something in a way that he can't avoid the question. But certainly, Secretary Pompeo, Secretary Esper, General Milley, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, will make very strongly supportive statements to back up President Moon. But unfortunately, all of this is extremely inconvenient to President Trump, who's coming out of a COVID-19 crisis that doesn't seem to go away, and just today had to devote himself to an executive order on police reform that would ban chokeholds. So this is something that is very unwelcome from the American point of view, but President Moon must not be isolated, and he has to feel the strong backing of the United States.
Well, General Chun, the North's actions clearly violate the joint military agreement reached in 2018. What does this mean for the South Korean army? The South Korean military.
The quiet peace that had prevailed along the DMZ and NLL was a symbol of hope for all Koreans and to the world. But even in this uneasy calm, the South Korean military's readiness along the DMZ and NLL was maintained with adjustments to support the political process. I therefore believe that the South Korean military is ready for any potential situation, as I have stated before. I also think that it is important for North Korea to understand that any challenge to South Korea will be met by a strong military response. So we are ready to fight tonight. And with the United States at our side, we are more capable than ever before.
And Dr. Barry, how do you think South Korea should respond to this?
I think they have to exercise great caution. My understanding is that everything that has occurred thus far has occurred on its own territory. There is no incursion on the DMZ, nothing that would be seen as provocative over the border. But miscommunication is always the most fearful thing when tensions rise in any conflict, anywhere in the world. We saw already today a conflict, the first in 45 years, with at least 20 deaths between India and China. So the signaling may have gotten miswired, so to speak. So we do not want to see any situation like that erupt along the military demarcation line. But that said, it is a whole new ball game, and North Korea is grasping for straws, trying to figure out how to get the attention that they think they will otherwise not get in an extremely fast-moving and chaotic international environment.
Well, General Chun, how do you think that South Korea should respond, considering all the series of events, and how do you think the North Koreans are actually expecting Seoul to respond?
Well, I think North Korea first thinks that this kind of intimidation or brinkmanship is going to work, and they'll be able to get concessions leading to economic relief for the regime, which is, not going to happen. I also think that North Korea believes that it can intimidate South Korea to persuade the United States and start a inter-Korean economic exchange. Although South Korea must do its best to preserve peace and continue its efforts for peaceful coexistence, it must never give in to intimidation. That's why I welcome the initial response by the Moon administration to the demolition of the liaison office building. But the military activity, more military activity is probably going to be forthcoming. So South Korea must be firm, and yet its responses must be measured.
And lastly, just before we go, Dr. Barry, do you think there is a way to smooth over the situation, or do you think the North Korean regime is really determined to pick a fight? I mean, we heard this morning Kim Yo-jong saying that, there's no point of sending a special envoy to the North, and she said that she was very disgusted with President Moon Jae-in's comments. I mean, is there a way forward from this?
I think it's a long road ahead, and there are some people quite afraid that there may be an ICBM test. There may be another nuclear test. That would, of course, compel President Trump to respond. Whether it would take us as far back as to the fire and fury of 2017, we don't know. But again, I have to stress that I think the old ways, we're in the 70th year since the outbreak of the Korean War, the old ways are not really necessarily going to work in 2020 and into 2021. The instability in Northeast Asia, the instability on the Korean Peninsula has to be resolved with a lot of new thinking, a lot of new effort, and a lot of strong cooperation and coordination between South Korea, Japan, and the United States. And that's particularly in view of the emergence of China as a much more powerful entity in the region than ever before. So it's going to really take new thinking and a new approach. And if the United States is going to deal with its own inner demons of institutional racism and so forth, it also needs to deal in a new way with the age-old problems, whether it be the problem of peace in the Korean Peninsula or the problem of Arab-Israeli peace or many other decades-long conflicts.
So really, while it looks like North Korea is up to its old tricks, really, pulling all these antics and provocations, it's clear that we can't take the same response to this, and it should be done in a very creative and very logical way as well. Well, this is where we'll have to wrap up the discussion, I'm afraid, but it was great to hear your insights on this. Chun In-bum, former Lieutenant General and Commander of the Special Warfare Command of the Republic of the Korea Army, and Mark P. Barry, Associate Editor of the International Journal on World Peace. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is also where we wrap up the show. Thank you for watching.